What is up? Welcome to Fantasy Football Across America. I am in the Peach State with my boy Jason Allwine. How's it going?
How's it going, man? Glad to see you here. Welcome to the, as we called it when you first arrived, the Nerd Den.
The Nerd Den. Yeah, I mean it is pretty nerdy in here. I gotta say, of all the rooms I've been in, definitely top 1% nerdy. We've got Hot Wheels.
Top 1%.
We've got Hot Wheels. We've got Bernie Sanders. We've got soccer scarves. You name it, it's in the Nerd Den. But it's a cool setup you got here. I gotta say, pretty nice home office. And I was wondering before we get started, like, what's your favorite football memory? Like, tell me one game or one moment that like really stands out to you.
This will be a long story, but bear with me, everyone. It has a great ending. So I went to the NFC Championship when the Falcons played the Packers. Fantastic game. You know, they won by like 100,000 points or whatever. Julio Jones scored right at the top of the second half, all this fun stuff. But this was not my first NFC Championship, but this was the first NFC Championship I went to rooting for the Falcons. So when I was a child, I was a very rebellious guy. My stepdad was a Falcons fan. Shout out Kevin. They were playing the 49ers the year that the 49ers went to the Ravens, you know, that Super Bowl. I wore my Frank Gore jersey, went for the Niners. But this one against the Packers, went for the Falcons, all decked out. My stepdad let me wear his Deion Sanders throwback jersey, the black with the, you know, the red stitching. And I bought a Vuvuzela. Are you familiar?
Yeah.
The World Cup like horn that makes a very, very loud and kind of obnoxious noise.
I thought those were banned at NFL stadiums.
I got it in. And it was a plastic one, so I guess that, you know, and it folded. They didn't say anything, so yeah, I brought that in, and I mean, we were like nosebleeds or whatever, and I mean, this was the Falcons, like they were destroying this game, and it was maybe second, third possession. They get a first down, and in between, you know, moving the chains and everything, I just start blowing the horn. And this guy behind me, Falcons fan, yells at me. He's like, "Cut it out, man. You know, the Falcons need to hear and all this fun stuff. You're being too loud." And I was like, "All right, man." So I stopped using my Vuvuzela. I mean, I was like, I don't even remember how old I was, but you know, I was a teenager, young teen, liking my Vuvuzela, just having a good time. And this guy was pissing on my parade, wouldn't let me have it. Anyway, Falcons go to win the game. And you know, they go to the Super Bowl. They play the Patriots in the Super Bowl. It's the famous 28-3. Watch that game, love it. I'm also a Patriots fan, as we'll talk about a little bit later. So very good Super Bowl for me. So it worked out really well. But after the game, we all know how it ends. You know, terrible ending for the Falcons. The guy who yelled at me was at the Patriots Falcons Super Bowl.
Oh, damn.
And I kid you not, I'm watching like a 15-minute NFL Films like kind of recap of the game, and I get to see a freeze frame of this man crying. And I have never felt more vindicated in my life than when I saw this man who yelled at me for my Vuvuzela, then crying at the Super Bowl. Same guy. He looks exactly like a knockoff Drake. That's what we called him. That's what my stepdad called him at the time. So anyway, it was really cool to see him. Very, very noticeable guy. And when I saw that clip after the Super Bowl, it just made it so much better. So loved the NFC Championship, and then also loved that kind of piece of karma that came later.
I gotta say, man, I don't know if that story paints a very good picture of your fandom. Just as you said, you rooted for the Niners and the Falcons and the Patriots. Like I don't know, man. If I was a Falcons diehard, I would probably be trying to get a hold of your address right now to come here and do some damage. Yep. But before we continue with the show, let's hear a quick word about the wonderful tools over at Player Profiler.
Yeah.
DFS getting harder every year, but we're here to make it easier with the DFS Dominator, because I know a lot of optimizers keep coming out. Oh, our optimizer. What about this optimizer? But that optimizer. Well, we have a cash game optimizer that leverages the projections from Dario, Billy, the award-winning projections at playerprofiler.com, and builds the best lineups for cash games that have both upside and stability, because that's what you want. It's a couple clicks, boom, boom, boom. You get the best possible lineup for your cash games. But for tournaments, traditional optimizers don't work. That's why we have a lineup genius, which takes you through the process of building lineups the way they should be built. Which quarterbacks do you want to be overweight on? Then building stacks, then setting run backs, then optimizing, and generating up to 150 lineups that you can easily import into DraftKings, into FanDuel. That's the DFS Dominator. It's only $45 a year, not a week, a year. Just go to Player Profiler, click on the DFS Dominator from the menu, and you won't be sorry.
And welcome back to the show. If you guys want access to all of our premium tools over at Player Profiler, use the promo code Dario to save $10. I think we also have a sale running through the end of the season right now. What's the latest on that, Jason?
We just lowered the price. I do believe we will have a holiday sale though, where there's some rumbling. So stay tuned.
Yeah. All right. And I believe you said you had a story of your days of glory with the DFS Dominator.
Yeah. So the Lineup Genius, it's a fun tool. Every week on Sundays, I publish a Sunday preview for the Player Profiler social media. You can find that on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And at the end of it, I build a lineup in the DFS Lineup Genius. And 1 week, I enter it every week just to see how it does. And I threw the dime package, a 10-cent entry, and I got 19th out of like 90,000 or whatever. From the DFS Dominators lineup. So it's definitely a really good tool. Turn that 10 cents into $5. Wish I, put more money, but still, I mean, that's a crazy percentage.
Yeah, we got to pull up that lineup.
Yeah. I can pull that up.
Don't worry, not right now, but we'll look at it later.
Yeah.
But that's how long have you been playing DFS? Is this just kind of a little side dabble?
It started, what was the year the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl?
I think that was 2020.
Yeah, it was the 2020 Super Bowl, 2019 football season, I think. Maybe not. Either way, around that time, a little bit. I think it was right before COVID, or like the year before that, maybe. Or maybe it was right at it. Doesn't matter. That was when I started playing DFS. It was right in the playoffs, too. That's actually when I prefer to do it. I'm a showdown captain mode guy. I like to just focus on one slate. And that year I did pretty well. It was Michael Pittman's rookie season. He was really good the first round when the Colts were in the playoffs, just, full PPR. And then I used Gronk in the Super Bowl lineup and he scored 2 touchdowns and won me some money in the Super Bowl too.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah.
Nice. All right. And then I guess more generally speaking, do you remember when you started playing fantasy football altogether?
Yeah, I was a bit younger, so I don't remember like the full breadth of the situation. I think 8. I want to say it was 2006. I want to say it was Maurice Jones-Drew's rookie season, and I want to say that he was like my first pick and all of that fun stuff. I fell in love with Maurice Jones-Drew that year, but I don't remember any of my league mates or anything besides it was my dad had signed me up for it on Yahoo, and we were in it together.
Okay, I was gonna say if you I was like, did you play with other third graders and none of you remember? But that makes more sense. Yeah. Wow, that's really cool. And then I know that currently you and Maddie Kiwoom obviously have the Trade Gods show on this very same Player Profiler network. Like, how did you get to dabbling in Dynasty?
Yeah, it started with my home league. We were just a redraft league with a bunch of buddies of mine, and we had just started hearing about Dynasty just from playing fantasy football. And eventually we switched our redraft league to be a keeper league in season. And then we decided that after the keeper league, we would then switch it fully to Dynasty. And if you want, I can go into kind of a full discussion of how we set that up. I do find it a very interesting way to navigate that kind of situation.
Yeah, it seems odd to make that change in season. Like how did they get the green light on that?
Yeah, well, so it wasn't necessarily in season, but the way it worked is, we decided to be keeper in season. So it was just a regular redraft. We all drafted our teams or whatever. And probably about week 5 or 6 or so, we were like, let's make it keeper. We decided how many keepers it would be. I think it was 5 or 6. And, we spent the rest of that season enabling trades to be like, hey, go trade for the players you want to keep, and all that fun stuff. And once we had the keepers decided, we at that point were like, we want to go full Dynasty. Like, why are we even worrying about just keepers? So we had all the keepers decided. I assigned them to every team. And then we had a player pool of basically everyone else available. And we did an auction draft with everyone that wasn't kept. And it was a very, very cool auction draft. It went very well. And I do think that's a pretty fun way to set that up. If you're stuck in a home redraft league, I do think that was a really good way to kind of segue, because that gives everyone the chance to bid on other players instead of just waiting in a snake draft.
Yeah, no, like, that's an interesting way to do it too, with like the keeper element kind of making the auction a little more digestible, if you will.
For sure.
And I guess on that note of your trade god status,
Mhm.
who are you trading for right now to make a playoff push? Who are you selling? Give
Yeah.
me like maybe 2 names each.
Yeah, we actually just talked about this on Trade Gods last week, so go check out that episode if you want a few more targets. A couple that worked in that episode that are not really going to be viable anymore were Tony Pollard and Deebo Samuel, were a couple players I was targeting last week. This week, I actually went through the dynasty rankings this morning, and I've noticed that there's a really big gap between Nico Collins and Tank Dell. And I realize that that's because Tank Dell is a rookie, and it's very exciting. But for all intents and purposes, they've performed pretty similarly in my head, with some ceiling games from Nico Collins, some ceiling games from Tank Dell, and still both having a pretty good floor. So I think Nico Collins is a really fun target right now, just because he was so cheap at the beginning of the year, and yet the market for him is still pretty questionable. Like, no one's really sure if he's the true alpha in Houston yet. And I think he's at least getting you the points to believe that. So I think that that's a fun player to target.
Yeah, we've been having some conversations internally about that very section of the receiver dynasty rankings, because after you get to like, right around that Tank Dell, Zay Flowers area, wide receivers like 16 through 28, all the way down to like Nico Collins, all kind of, I mean, they're very different stylistically. Like, you can have Keenan Allen in there, and you have Drake London in there, and like, it's kind of a choose your own adventure section of the dynasty wide receiver rankings. And I think there's a very good case that Nico Collins should be closer to Tank Dell. So that's a really good name. Anyone you're selling, like shorting the market on?
Yeah, I would say this is honestly a hot take. It is just coming to me, but Sam Laporta. I would be selling Sam Laporta. I believe that his market has just gone a bit too far for where his production's at. Again, I know he's a rookie and it's very, very exciting, but I think that you're going to get similar production from a guy like Trey McBride or even Dalton Kincaid, who's cheaper than him right now, at least in terms of their career trajectory.
Yeah, no, I mean, all 3 of those guys are routinely top 7 tight ends in our weekly rankings now.
Yep.
So it's going to be very interesting to see where their profiles continue to take them. I mean, the Bills offense, the Cardinals offense, the Lions offense, all on pretty different trajectories right now. So that's interesting. And let's maybe pivot toward more just like real NFL talk, kind of sliding away from the fantasy specific advice. Like, what's a big takeaway for you from week 12?
The Falcons are making the playoffs, baby.
Oh, no. Someone has to win the NFC South.
And it's going to be the Falcons, baby.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you who are watching, I stayed over here at Jason's place Saturday night, and then I went to the Falcons Saints game on Sunday in my Drew Brees jersey, and I told Jason, I was like, "There's no way the Saints are winning this game. Yeah. Like, they just have to find a way to blow this. They will." And naturally they did. Yep. But yeah, I mean, the Bucs also couldn't hold up with the Colts. Like, it does seem like Arthur Smith might commandeer a playoff appearance here, to everyone's dismay. Do you think they would still fire him if they make the playoffs?
Unfortunately, no. And I remember a few weeks ago reading that the Falcons were planning on having him back in 2024 anyway. And this is when they were at 3rd in the division, had just gone on the losing streak, had just benched Desmond Ridder, and they were still talking about being committed to him for at least one more season. Arthur Blank, unfortunately, struggles to move on from coaches. And I think if he made the playoffs, for sure, he'd be here another year. It's not the worst thing in the world. I talk about this on Wake and Take a lot. One positive about the Falcons is that they do have an identity, at least now after this week, that they've finally unleashed Bijan Robinson. I think that this offense having an identity will translate into fantasy points, but also just fans showing up to games, which adds a ton as well, moving tickets, all of that fun stuff. So I think that the Falcons are trending in the right direction if they can continue feeding Bijan and running this offense like they did this week.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because even though they kind of got to be more run heavy because of the game script, but like Bijan's share of the backfield has stayed about the same. I mean, the 2 touchdowns help, but like there are series where it's like 3 Tyler Algier carries in a row, followed by a Cordero Patterson carry, and it's just like you're pulling your hair out as a Bijan fantasy manager, seeing these other guys who are plotters like getting 8-9 yard gains.
Scordarell still got something.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be hilarious when whoever wins the NFC South has to host the 5 seed, which is going to be very likely the Cowboys, and just gets absolutely demolished at home in front of their fans. So we have that to look forward to in the wild card round of the playoffs. But let's look on the AFC side. I think things are a lot more interesting because you've got kind of like 6 teams in the cluster for the wild card spot. All the division leaders have pretty good size leads right now, and that's the Chiefs, Jaguars, Ravens, and the Dolphins. But then you have like the Steelers, Browns, and Colts would make the playoffs if the season ended today, which is the most disgusting sentence I've said all year. And then the Texans, Broncos, and Bills are the next 3 teams on the outside looking in. What's your read on how that is all going to play out?
It's tough. The Steelers and Browns have such a good defense to where it's hard for them to lose these games and lose this spot. They've been in this exact place in the playoff race for a few weeks now. I think if either of those teams are to fall out, it would be the Browns. I'm expecting the Steelers to make the playoffs at this point. You know, moving on from that Canada, the offense took a step forward, and just again, TJ Watt is playing at an unbelievable level right now that it's just going to be hard to stop them. But with the Browns, you know, having DTR now on the concussion protocol, looking like Joe Flacco is going to start this week. You know, they'll probably skid and find some losses there, so someone could sneak in. If the Colts make the playoffs, I would be very upset. So I hope that we can have a Steelers, Texans, Bills. But the Broncos are making some noise too, as we, you know, they're in the picture. But I'm hoping it's the Texans, Bills, Steelers in those wild card spots.
Yeah, I think that you speak for most football fans with that particular set of teams. I mean, the Colts and Texans probably still have to play each other at least one more time, so we'll get some clarity there. And then the Broncos and the Texans actually play each other this week, which should be really interesting. Broncos already have that head-to-head win over the Bills. I mean, that was a ridiculous Monday night game to watch a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, I think it's wide open. I think if I had to stake my claim to a prediction, I feel like I think the Steelers and the Texans I feel good about. I don't want to see 3 AFC North teams in the playoffs, man. I
know.
So I'll ride with you and put the Bills in for that. Actually, no, you know what? Let's go crazier. The Chargers are going to sneak in and take that last spot.
I hope not. If Brandon Staley keeps his job, I'm going to be pissed.
Yeah. No, I mean, they probably need to win out at this point, but I saw a tweet the other day that was like basically every Chargers game since they lost that wild card game against the Jaguars last year, and their wins are all against like really bad quarterbacks like Zach Wilson, and then all the other games they're like losing just nail biters left and right. It's crazy. I mean, they definitely need a reset. But it would be fun to see them go on a tear and get to see Justin Herbert in the playoffs. For sure. In other corners of the football world, Aaron Rodgers was designated to return from IR today. Does that mean anything to you?
I guess so. I mean, that means he's gonna have to be activated at some point. I was assuming that he was just pulling the Aaron Rodgers shtick, where he was gonna hype himself up to play, and then right when the Jets were eliminated from playoff contention, he was gonna come out and say, "Well, you know, I could have returned, but there's no point now." That's kind of how I was expecting this thing to go. But it's looking like he's at least gonna try. It's something that's unprecedented. We've never seen anyone return from this type of injury, especially a quarterback, this quickly. So I honestly have no read on the situation. I'm going to lean. It's not going to look good, but I would assume if Aaron Rodgers feels he can play, he can play.
Yeah. I think that the biggest mistake that the Jets have made is not trading for someone like Josh Dobbs at the deadline, right? I mean, or even like, or in week 2, like what, you know, all this, you know, Rodgers is going to be ready to come back. And they're going to be out of contention because they've been rolling out Zach Wilson and now Tim Boyle for the last 2 months. So I think, that's enough Aaron Rodgers conversation for today. Any particular fantasy format that you like will like, you know, kind of plant your flag on as your favorite type of league to play in?
Yep. Single quarterback, tight end premium, kickers, and instead of defense special teams, you've got to have IDP. I like to stick as much as possible to the real game of football as possible. If we start to see 2 quarterback sets pretty frequently, then I'll start running some 2 quarterback leagues. But for now, I just like the idea of having my franchise quarterback. That's my guy. That's my dude. And then I like to have, I guess a little bit deeper wide receivers. I usually do 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, a bunch of flexes, 4 or 5 flexes. Why not? Again, IDP kickers are important, guys. Kickers are very important.
I hate to push back on that, but how often do you see 2 running backs on the field at the same time?
If you watch the Falcons pretty often.
Sorry, if you watch regular football, how often do you see 2 running backs on the field at the same time?
Not too often, unless you count Lamar Jackson.
But there's your answer, folks. I think especially the tight end premium aspect of that is really interesting because you probably, at that point, make tight ends more valuable than quarterbacks if you have a single quarterback tight end premium.
Yeah, so we do half PPR with an extra half going to tight end, so they'll get the full.
That's not too bad.
And then 6-point passing touchdowns for quarterbacks to even that out as well.
Okay, that's interesting. Very cool. And then is there any player that, you already mentioned Maurice Jones-Drew, but is there anyone else that kind of, I don't know, shaped your love for fantasy football or just like kind of put you on the trajectory that brought you to where you are now?
Oh, it's 100% Tom Brady, the GOAT himself. I love this man with everything in my heart. I actually have a Tom Brady shrine right here with a Michigan Tom Brady figure, a Patriots.
Is the reason you're a Michigan fan?
No, I was a Patriots fan because my dad was my dad's from Michigan. So we were all Michigan fans or whatever, but we lived here. And instead of making me watch the Falcons in the early 2000s, he put on the Patriots because Tom Brady was a Michigan man. And so I grew up a Patriots fan, and really just an NFL fan. And so when he was gone, really, I was a Tom Brady fan. I guess we're going to be honest. I'm like the LeBron James fans of the NBA. I'm a Tom Brady guy. So honestly, I try to say this, I'm more of just a football fan. We talked about the Frank Gore jersey. I had jerseys of like every team, always a player I liked. I've collected football cards forever. I only watch Red Zone. Like I don't ever normally watch a Falcons game. Like I watch Red Zone. So Tom Brady though, he's my guy. I love Tom Brady more than anything. And he's the best football player of all time.
Oh man, you're on thin ice, man. Trying to think how many so yeah, is that Falcons NFC? You said you've been to that NFC Championship game. Was there any other unforgettable moments for you?
Not like live. I haven't been. Well, actually, one time I went to a Falcons Patriots preseason game, sat on the 50 and waved at Randy Moss and he waved back at me.
Oh, cool.
So that was pretty cool. But, just the standard Patriots childhood fan stuff, the Malcolm Butler interception, the Julian Edelman Falcons catch, Randy Moss catching a one-handed 70-yard pass from Tom Brady against the Jets in 2007. The helmet catch, even though it sucks, that's always with me.
Yeah. Okay. And you said you're a Michigan fan, but you live in Atlanta,
Yep.
Obviously. If UGA has to play Michigan in the playoff, are you rooting for Michigan?
Oh, 100%. I don't like UGA really at all. I know you said that you liked Athens, but I don't necessarily like Athens too much. Well, I like the artsy side of Athens, but generally the population there, not a big fan of, and what goes on in the college party towns. I'm just not one of those types of people. Never really have been. And so I've actually never been a fan of UGA. Even I went to UGA football camps when I was younger, when I thought I could be a football player. And even then, like I have a UGA hat right here actually. And I don't really like the Bulldogs. I will say though, I do sort of root for them. My girlfriend's parents are Georgia fans. They go to every single game, have season tickets. They go to the away games even. So I do hope they do well for their sake, but 100%, I will be going for Michigan if they play each other. Last time they played each other, it was when the Bulldogs had Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter still on the defensive line. And we lost by like 100,000 or whatever. It was like 52-3, like just a terrible football game. So, this time they don't have freak athletes on the defensive line. They still got really good ones, but not Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis level. So hopefully it could be a bit more competitive.
Yeah, no, that's, you probably got a lot of hate growing up around here, I imagine. For that.
And, well, actually, most of my hate came from being a Patriots fan. Just, everyone likes the dog on the Patriots fans.
Well, it's like, if you grew up, you're about the same age as me. Like anyone who's a Patriots fan, it was like you're a bandwagoner.
Yeah, definitely.
So-
definitely. And I mean, and now I'm not even really a Patriots fan, so maybe they were right.
So, ouch. No, I mean, to each their own. I think I remember that 2007 season was really the first football season I clearly
Yeah.
remember, because it was just like following that undefeated season was unreal.
It was awesome.
But anyway, I also like to use this show as a platform for people to get to know the person behind the fantasy analyst. Like, obviously, Jason, the player profiler audience, knows you pretty well, seeing you 5 times a week. I mean, how long have you been doing Wake and Take now?
I started the Monday before the combine, so like February 26th or 7th of this year.
So almost a year now.
Almost a year now. Yeah.
5 days a week. But I bet you the player profiler audience does not know what your favorite podcast to listen to is on your own time.
Yeah, it is actually Stuff You Should Know. It's a small little podcast, and they do all sorts of stuff. It's just literally every podcast is a different topic. I've listened to stuff on renewable energy down to beaver dams and what they do for the environment, and I just like doing that. Listening to Stuff You Should Know. It's a really, really good podcast. Both of the hosts live in Georgia, so there's that kind of element, but they're also just really, really professional hosts. I really love the podcast, and they make learning fun. I sound like a nerd, but I mean, they've got hour-long episodes, and they even have what they call short stuff. Like if you just want to learn about something that doesn't have a lot of history, and those are just like 10-15 minuters, you can crank that one out on the way to the grocery store. But great podcast. And one more. My very first podcast had nothing to do with football. I did a podcast when I was just kind of finishing up college. I was thinking about doing this, and I used to go to this music festival called Bonnaroo, and I interviewed a lot of people that went to Bonnaroo on this web forum called Inforoo, Info ROO, and there's a podcast on Spotify called The People of Inforoo, inspired by the people of New York. And it's like 30 something episodes. And I just talk to people about their life, what they do on a day-to-day basis and stuff like that. And it's normal people, but I found a lot of it very interesting. Talked with people who, just like unemployed, go to music festivals, a guy who traveled across Asia from village to village teaching English, as well as just like a neurosurgeon who is working on monkeys and video games. So lots of cool little stories in that one as well.
Yeah, that sounds like really eclectic.
It is. It was right in the pandemic. Like middle of it, and I felt that I was losing my my speaking ability, and I wanted to be in like a social speaking type of thing. So I was like, I've got to start podcasting, or else I'm not going to remember how to talk to people. And that was kind of an easy one for me. It's a fun one. There's some really nice people in there. I really love that community. They are actually probably how I even was able to start this. Just starting with that one and then moving on to football, which was my true passion. But very good place there over at Infru. Shout out to them. That makes
sense. That's really cool. And I gotta say, you name dropped going to the grocery store, and now I have to know, like, you have to have. There must be a grocery store take deep down in the Jason Allwine.
Yeah.
Give it to us.
Yeah. So I'll go with my meta, what I do for grocery shopping. But before I get into that, Dario, you're in the South now. Have you had a Publix sub?
No.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you've not had a pub sub, as we eloquently call it here, it is just a sandwich sold at Publix, which is one of our grocery stores. You're going to Florida next, I believe you said. That it's a Florida grocery chain. It has eked into Georgia and the Carolinas. It is the best sandwich you'll have. I don't know what it is, but the Publix sandwiches are so good. They even have a Falcons themed sandwich, which is not good, but still like just shows like how much it's just gone into our culture here. The pub sub Publix sandwiches, they're very good. I recommend the chicken tender sub. I get just the chicken tenders. They're chopped up, and I put some honey mustard and mayonnaise on it, toast it. That's all that's on it. And it is so good. But I mean, the turkey sandwiches are good. The bread's really good. Publix sandwiches are very good.
With an X.
Yes.
Okay. On Publix. Yeah.
Very good. Right. But I'll say this. So what's good about Publix? Anyone listening to this that knows Publix is going to say, oh, Publix is so expensive. This is true. However, every Wednesday, they do buy one, get one free sales for the whole week. So they change it on Wednesdays, everyone listening. So on Wednesdays, usually I will go to Publix, or, at some point I know that it's reset. I go to Publix at least once a week to see what's buy one, get one free, because their buy one, get one free, it's not advertised as this, but it's actually half off. And so you don't have to buy 2 of the product to get the deal. So it works really well for me and Madison, my girlfriend, because we're 2 people, and a lot of things that are portioned out are made for families and everything. So not having to buy 2 is really nice. And then also getting half off of something that we're probably not going to finish because we're only 2 people is really nice. And you can find some really good stuff there. Like normally cooking oil is half off. So that's really nice if you like to fry things. And really everything. That's how I decide what I'm eating as my snack for the week. This week I got kettle cooked barbecue chips because those are buy one, get one free. So that's my snack of the week. But other than that, I'll go to Kroger because it is cheaper.
Wow. Yeah, I hadn't heard of Publix, so this is why you ask when people say the grocery store, you gotta ask.
Yep.
And pry a little deeper.
Yep.
And I think you've told me already, but you said you grew up here in Georgia, right? You pretty much have. Oh, you said, or I'll let you answer.
Yeah. So I was actually born in San Diego. I lived there until I was like 4.5, and then we moved here, and I've been here ever since. Yeah.
Any recollection of San Diego?
Definitely.
The beautiful shores.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we still go back, not as much anymore because my grandpa moved up to the Bay Area to be with my uncle, who also moved up to the Bay Area. But still, we used to go to San Diego pretty frequently growing up, and I love it's the best city in the world. So yeah, I remember it, but not as much as a child. Just very brief, child memories. Like I vaguely remember being at the beach. Vaguely remember our condo.
And then I guess like San Diego, Georgia. Mm-hmm. Are there any weather takes that have formulated in this space that you've gotten to grow up?
Yeah, so San Diego has the best weather in the world. That's not a hot take. Everyone knows it. It is 70 degrees year round. But I will say this, we were talking about it a bit pre-show. Y'all need to stop hating on Georgia's winters because it gets cold as hell here. And I'm tired of pretending that it does not because I am freezing my ass off the past few weeks. It's been so cold here, and I know it's only going to get colder. I don't know if it's the humidity, the wind. I think it's the humidity. I think the humidity makes it colder, but it gets so cold here, guys. And I know it doesn't snow and we're not locked in, but it's still freezing and it sucks. So stop hating.
Yeah, no, I did not expect. I mean, it's been, I think it gets down to like the low 30s the last couple nights. I've been sleeping in my van. And I did not expect that from Georgia. I thought I was like, okay, I'm done with the Midwest. Like my coldest nights are behind me. I was wrong.
No, yeah, it's cold.
But yeah, no, I mean, best of luck to you. I'm excited to be headed back to California in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But
and what makes it worse is we also get the hottest summers. So we get really cold winters that are, not talked about. And then we get ridiculously hot summers because it's not just 100. It's 100 with 100% humidity. And so you sweat the second you step out the door. The worst thing as a Georgia native, I hope anyone listening to this is from Georgia or maybe Florida. It's probably similar. But if you fly somewhere else, for example, in August, I went out to Phoenix, Arizona. It's a dry place. Came back to Atlanta. The second you step off that airplane, you are sweating and it's ridiculous. I hate it. I hate it a lot. I actually very much hate Georgia's weather and always have.
Wow. There you have it, folks. Jason Allwine hates the Falcons and the Georgia weather. Are there any non-football hobbies that you have? I mean, clearly there's a few around us, but any that you want to promote or just tell the people about?
Yeah, I am a man of many hats. I like a lot of things. I would say my biggest passions outside of football are going to be hiking. I'm a big hiking person, not necessarily a backpacking person. I feel like when I say I'm a hiker, a lot of people assume I backpack. I haven't ventured that far yet. I'd like to maybe do a weekend trip, but I like just going out and seeing, a view, short hike, kind of thing. Just being out in nature, I guess, is my real answer. Video games. So in a past life, I was actually a GameStop manager, believe it or not. So I'm a big video game guy, and soccer too. I play soccer still, actually, in a Sunday league with some of my friends. So love that sport. So yeah, video games, hiking, and soccer, playing soccer specifically. Very, very good. And also just music, anime. I'm an anime guy as well. So
yeah, we were sitting around talking about music for a little while the other night.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, hiking. I mean, I definitely encourage you to venture into backpacking because that is I love it. It's like the pure essence of hiking
Yep.
distilled, just prolonged
Definitely.
prolonged exposure to the great outdoors. But yeah, I think, I don't know, any final notes you'd like to hit before we wrap up this episode?
No, I mean, I would just say, one thing I like to live my life by, if something, makes you happy, it makes you happy. I think that there's a lot of things that people will say that is like not cool to like or not cool to do, but if it makes you happy, keep doing it. And if you chase happiness, success will come as well. Do what makes you happy and you'll do good.
There you have it, folks. Thanks so much for coming on today's episode of Fantasy Football Across America. Jason, thanks for welcoming me into your home. It was also lovely to meet the famous Allwine pets, of course.
Yep.
If you guys, Pip has been on our Instagram.
Yep.
I guess I don't know how well all the other pets have made it onto the socials, but it's thanks so much for having me. Thanks so much
Thanks for
coming on the show, and we will see you all later.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you, allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.